Hi, Randy Kay here with Heaven Encounters. My guest today died, went to heaven and met Jesus, and then subsequently received a heart transplant. So, Brian Hoyland, it's great to have you with us today.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Now, Brian, you had suffered from severe illness. You're a veteran from the Army, and we want to hear what led up to this event because it's absolutely amazing.
Well, I was exposed to toxic chemicals when I was in the military, and due to that exposure, I developed several autoimmune diseases. And unknown to me, one of the autoimmune diseases particularly devastating. It attacks all of my organs. It's called sarcoidosis, and I have what's called multi-system sarcoidosis. So it's attacking every organ in my body, but it really particularly attacked my heart and devastated my heart to the point that it ate my heart completely away. And so in 2017, I ended up having a cardiac arrest for over 10 minutes. And when I died, I, like you said, went to heaven and saw Jesus. But what was really cool about it is when I was dying, I was experiencing so much pain, and this has been going on for several months, this just intense pain, a lot of suffering that was going with it. But as soon as I died, I snapped and I popped. I felt this like physical exertion that my body came, my soul came out of my body. It was a really powerful experience. And then I'm in this dark tunnel, and it was just peace and love and joy was just filling me. All the chaos of the hospital room completely stopped. I didn't even care about it anymore. All of my emotions were very level and very, very calm, very, very peaceful. They had a sense of balance to them. So having just experienced all that trauma and terror, particularly for all those months, but really cultivating at the end there and coming to a fruition, it was terrible, and it was all of a sudden gone in just seconds. Just boom, and it's gone. And so I'm looking, and I'm gonna make this kind of quick. I want to make sure I get my whole story in, but I saw this dark void in front of me, and I could see in all directions. So I could see that there was this light behind me, and it was a magnificent light, and it was shining into the darkness, overpowering the darkness to where I could see the depths of the darkness in that void. So I immediately said I wanted to be with that light. I was just this thought that came into my mind that there was nothing else I wanted other than to be with this light. And instantly I was there. Except I could remember every step I took to get there. And it was a long distance. Like I said, I could see in 360 degrees, but my vision had drastically changed. I could see as far as you could imagine seeing, but I could see, like I said, every direction. I could see behind things and still see the front. I could follow my vision. It was as if I had complete control over my vision to where I could see what I was still looking at here and what I was seeing extended down as far as I wanted to go. There were no limitations to my vision. So that was really cool. And what was even more impressive maybe is the wealth of wisdom and knowledge that flooded into me. It was as if I was just all of a sudden connected to this high-speed computer, and I could just whip out all the answers you could ever imagine. I wouldn't have needed Google search. I mean, that would have taken too long. I had access to everything immediately. It was so cool. And to be able to learn about my vision with that increased intelligence and kind of manipulating it, I was having a lot of fun. It was a really cool experience to be able to see all these changes and removal of limitations that we have in our physical bodies. So I'm standing before this light, and I was looking both directions, up and down. I couldn't see the end of this light. It went on forever. I assume there was just, I got the impression there was no end to this light. And as I'm looking at it, it was so bright and so magnificent that I was staring at it, and I could not believe it wasn't hurting my eyes to be able to look at something so bright. That's just not something we commonly can do. And I was so taken by this that I said it in my own head. I couldn't believe that this isn't hurting my eyes. And I could feel how wonderful it was making me feel. It was as if this light was really palpable. It was it was the source of the love and peace, and it was emanating directly into my soul. And so I heard the light say, "You can come in if you want." And so, of course, I went right into the light. I was so excited. And as I'm walking in this light, it was as if the love and peace was just flooding into my soul and removing everything from me that was just negative or hurt or broken. It was as if I was being mended as I was going through this light. And I was walking through it for quite a while. And then I just got this impulse to see Jesus. The only thing I wanted was to see Jesus. And I knew that he was there. I could feel that feeling, that we get when we pray and we know we're close to the Lord. I could feel that, but I wanted to be able to see. I wanted to be able to see him and talk to him. And as soon as I thought that, the light opened up, and I was in this great room, and this room was huge, and it was full of beings. I really don't know how to describe how many beings I saw. I would say you could name it as 1 trillion. You can name it as 10 trillion. I don't know, but it was more than you could ever imagine seeing. And there's just no way, I could ever contemplate how much. I probably could have known how many were there when I was there because of my increased intelligence. But sadly, when I came back, my intelligence went back to normal. So I can't do anything with it. But I know as I think about it, that amount of people was just so huge. And I could, like I said, I could see in front and behind each individual. There was nothing that was limited to my vision. And that was just incredible to be able to experience how many people I was seeing. And every being was just like this beautiful light. They had a torso of a human being, but it was like this magnificent light that was shining and glimmering. But in the midst of all these beings was one that was just so profoundly more beautiful and so full of light that it was clear that, the source of light was coming from there. And that was the same as the light that had encapsulated the whole room. And it was Jesus. There was just no mistaking it. And as I said, "Jesus, I want to see your face." And his face started to come together for me right when I said that. And it was so beautiful to see his features, his smile. But the thing that really struck me is that I wasn't able to lay down the memory of what I was seeing of his face. The only thing that got into my memory was this beautiful light, the same light that I had been seeing, but it was the light shining off his face. The rest of his body looked like, just a shining, beautiful light. But the face of his light in my memory is so magnificent. It was as if it's popping into my eyes and into my memory. But when I was there, I was able to see his face, just not lay down those memories. It's kind of like if you took one of those little picture books and you flip through it and the little figure moves and it does something. It was kind of like that. You never have the same picture in your mind. It's always the next one's flipping there so quick. And that's what it was like as I was seeing Jesus's face. I knew he was smiling at me, and I knew that he was showing me love with his features, but I just couldn't remember what I was seeing. But what was really interesting is as I was seeing his face, we started to review all of my sins and my good things that I have done too. Unfortunately, there wasn't probably as many of those as there were of the bad things that I had done. But what really got me was some of the things that I had done that, I thought were horrible were things that I had already been forgiven of. I had really meant I was sorry for them. I didn't want to do them again. Those things God knew. But there were things that I had held on to that I never even thought of as being a sin. I thought it was me sticking up for myself or me doing something that was right. But the way that I had done it wasn't right. Or I didn't help somebody when I should have. And that lack of courage in those situations, that's something that really bothered me when I was reviewing this with Jesus. And the whole time I was reviewing all of my sins is that I was seeing what was being done to him when I was sinning. My sins were contributing to his passion. And yet this whole time, whether it was other people that I had hurt and his pain that he was feeling, what he was doing is he was taking all of my shame, my guilt, what the injuries that I had done to myself as well during these sins, he was helping me to heal from it. And, I can feel now that he removed so much of my pride, that I had contributed so much of my sin to my lack of effort, and my just, my inability to manhandle my temptations and muscle through it. And the reality is that I wasn't relying on God. And that's what I was seeing when I was talking to him, that, I didn't put my whole trust in him to allow him to work the good in me and through me. And so as we were doing that, I remembered this, one of the things that I went through was my prayer that I had prayed when I was 6 years old. And I had, just seen my great grandmother die. And I didn't want to have, all my family members cry like they were over my great grandmother. I just didn't want to have that experience. And, I was just a little kid. I didn't really understand necessarily, but I knew I didn't want to see people that sad over me. And so I prayed a long time. I mean, I was a little kid and I was praying for quite a while. And I felt like my prayer was answered. And I got that confirmation when I was there. Jesus said he remembered that prayer and that he did answer it, and that I would have a long life. And it was up to me whether I stayed here now or if I went back. And, I still think about that. And it kind of blows me away that, my time to die was when I was 42 years old. And so to be able to be given this extra time, well, I guess I should explain kind of the process that we went through, but it just still blows me away to think about how and why he let me do it. And what happened was he asked me, well, why do I want to go back, or why would I want to? And, I thought immediately, well, my family will need me. My wife needs me. My kids need me. And immediately I realized the error in my saying that, because he loves my family more than I do. And that really struck me. I guess, I kind of thought that God probably loves everybody more than we do, but I don't know, inside my human heart before this, I really felt like, how could anybody love my kids more than I do? And it was so apparent that he did. It was just magnificent to see that. But how reassuring that was to me is that he loves me like that same way, that same kind of care. And I felt like I was able to just be free with him and just to be myself. It wasn't, a lot of people always talk about, well, I don't want to go to heaven because God will take my free will away and I'll become a robot and I won't do all this stuff. And that's not how it is. It's like the temptations are gone. There were no temptations there. I was free to be me without all the temptations that the world throws at us. It was so wonderful to be with him and not have that just burdensome problem of that pressure of all that temptation that we always go through in life. And so as I'm reviewing that with him and thinking about all the reasons, the only thing I could come up with, and it was the only thing that even made sense to me, was that I wanted to go back to do more for him. And the reason I wanted to go back to do more for him was I was seeing how much he loved me and just that care that he had for me. And I just thought, well, I could do way more. And he looked at me, he smiled, and he said, that's it. And then he gave me 3 things that I needed to do. And that was to pray more. And then, I always thought I had prayed enough, but he really wanted me to live my life as a life of prayer, not just in the prayers that I say to him, but even in what I do for my work, putting everything I can into my work, not for necessarily for the job. I should do it for my job, but more so for God. I'm whatever place I find myself in, is he wanted me to do my best in that place and live my life as a life of prayer, as offering that service up to him as a prayer to him. And so even in my daily, drive or things like that, I'll say quick little prayers. And I know that's meeting what he wanted. He wanted me to be in constant communication with him, to always draw my strength off of him, as opposed to what I used to do, is draw it off myself. So then he said that I needed to suffer joyfully. And, this was easy to see when I was in heaven. It was so simple to see, because I saw how he is God, and he came down from heaven and became man, took on all of our sins for us, and died for us. I look at us as human beings, and we would say, if this group of human beings are hurting these other human beings, we're going to squish them. We're not going to have them part of our world anymore. We're going to get rid of them. But God loves us so much that he gives us all these chances, all the way up to when he knows that there's no more possibility for that person to turn. And so he has this endless love that just constantly is being offered to us. And when I realized that, I looked at my suffering that I had just went through in the hospital, and I saw that there was no pain, no resentment, no holding on to that. I was completely free from that suffering. And I realized in my life, I can go around and I can suffer, and in life we're going to, but I can either suffer miserably or I can offer that up to the Lord and say, well, this is what you're allowing to happen to me right now. And I know you're a good God, and that you have the best interest of my interest in your heart. I don't have to worry. This is going to change. Something is going to happen when it's the right time. And to have that kind of comfort, to come back to the body that I had to go back to, I was able to go back with this freeness that I've never had in life before. And I always thought I wasn't afraid to die. I was a soldier. I wasn't afraid to die in battle. I wasn't afraid to die. If something happened to you, Randy, I wouldn't even have known you as we were strangers before. I would have ran up and I would have saved you. I would have done that. But that's a human kind of courage. That's from my human sense of honor, not from a sense now where I would risk everything to save somebody for God. I would also risk getting rid of my own pride for the sake of God. That's how much I love him, is that I've learned to get rid of a lot of things that I used to hold on to very, very dearly and didn't even realize what I was doing with those. And so then the last thing he told me, he goes right in, is to share his love. And, that's a harder thing to do. I think we often say, we want to share God's love, and I think we all do, but that's a heavy load to carry, because his love is so immense. It's just this overpowering thing that should allow us to sacrifice what we think is in our best interest for somebody else who we know is really needing something at that moment. And it's nice to have an ice cream, but if somebody hasn't had one for several weeks, and I just had one yesterday, might not be a bad idea to sacrifice a little thing. And I know that seems like a really dumb analogy, but in the grand scheme of things, when we see our brother or sister hurting and struggling, and we can do something, that's part of sharing his love, is doing that for them, praying for people, and just showing kindness all the time. Those are the things that we can do to really help each other's lives. And that's ultimately what God wants us to do, is to try to will each other to heaven. This is a hard enough road to try to do it by ourselves, but if we try to help each other, that's the way to do it, and we can win souls. So that's the things that he told me to say or told me to do. And then, then he said that I had to go back, and then I started making my way back and went back to the tunnel and saw my hospital room from the end of the tunnel where I came out of the light. And I could see now that it wasn't the dark void. It was my hospital room that was at the end of this tunnel. And I could see, they had some equipment on my body. They had this thing called a Lucas machine. It was doing chest compressions for CPR. And they had, all the crash team in there, and they're working on me. And so when I came back, and I spontaneously revived, is what they put in my medical records. That, and I think that what they had done is they were about to call it the services or whatever they do to rescue me. They were going to call that done, and they had already taken off the Lucas machine. And I popped forward as much as I could. They had me strapped down because I guess they were shocking me before I had died. So they were trying to regulate my heart rate when it was really high in ventricular tachycardia. But they had me strapped down a little bit. And so I popped forward as much as I could, but I was trying to talk to the doc, and he couldn't quite hear what I said, but I asked him, did I just die? And when he came down the second time, I told him, or I said it again. He said, yeah, you just died. But the look he had on his face, I laugh every time, because that look is just, it's blazoned in my memory. But I was like, yeah, you just died. Like, he couldn't believe I just came back. But I think it was this rush of emotions of having just thought he lost a patient to now this patient just surprisingly coming back. And So then they worked on me. They ended up having to put in a new defibrillator and pacemaker. But after that, I had to live with that bad heart that had already killed me once for another 2 years before I was able to get to my heart transplant. And I'll send you a copy of my heart that they did the biopsy on it afterwards. And you got to see it. It's ridiculously gross, but it's impressive to see that I was able to live with this heart for 2 years. And, I can only tell you that it's because God had my heart in his hand and he was waiting to get me to the transplant, to get me the right heart. But it wasn't just that. I mean, my wife has thought, well, that's a lot of suffering to go through. Why didn't he just heal you right away? And I think as people, we care about each other and we kind of wonder those things. But I know for me that if God would have just healed me right away, I wouldn't have had the kind of just pure faith that he has developed in me, this perseverance and patience that he's cultivated in me. These graces that he's developed have been so profound and so helpful in my life that I don't know what I would have done without him. But it's that making me wait those 2 years, having known that I had just seen him, that he was giving me extra time. I wasn't really worried about dying. So I knew that there was a plan that he had in place, and I just had to wait for it to come through. And had he just given it to me right away, I don't know that it would have solidified that lesson that he really wanted me to learn. And when I did get that phone call, I was like, God, I knew you were going to do it. And I really did. My heart, for one time, I just felt like I had put every bit of my trust into God, and it felt good. It was like he rewarded me for just doing what I should have been doing anyway, and gave me that consolation of just feeling good about having waited and being patient. And, that's really been something I had a lot of difficulties with. I like to control things in my life, but he took that away, that need to control things, by showing me how much care he has for us. And, to get my heart to heart transplant like that, I'm telling you, if he loves me that much, he's going to do miracles in people's lives, because that is amazing that he did that for me. And I just hope that people hear this story and they know that God loves them. And, even when we go through some tough things, and life will throw it at us, life isn't meant to be easy, but allowing things like me to wait 2 years for a heart transplant, to some people seems like it becomes confusing, and it's a puzzlement to them. Why would God let us do that? But I can tell you right now, it makes me feel so good to know that my God can hold on to that heart for as long as he wants and get me to a heart transplant, to get me the right heart that he wanted for me. I just think that that's amazing. And then to also fill me with graces that I've never had before. It's like he gave me 2 miracles in one. I just can't thank him enough for all the things that he's done for me.
Wow. Brian, you had an account that is incredible for a number of different reasons, but you touched on the change post-heaven and meeting Jesus. One of the things you said was you had seen the light and the light was speaking to you. Was there an audible voice, or was there an impression that you had? And you also said that your intellect, or your ability to discern all of these things, was enhanced in heaven. So what happened there that was different, and how did that translate to how you live today?
Yeah, well, for the first one, I think, let me think how I want to, well, maybe I should just go to the second one first. So everything was enhanced in such a way that like, even when I was, I'll give you an example, recalling my sins when we were doing the life recall, and having all these memories all at once, everything flooding. I mean, it wasn't like I didn't have access to what happened when I was 3. I did. I had access to everything I had done at 3, at 12, all the years, all of my whole life. I had access to every memory at every single second of the time. And it wasn't confusing. I was able to keep track of it all. Kind of like we have memory now, but we have to actively pull on it to be able to think about that memory. It wasn't like that there. everything was just there. I could have every memory and see every memory at the same time. It wasn't as if I had to actively pull on it, but it was as if the things that I focused on, those are the things that I can still remember now. Everything else is, once my memory or once my intellect went back to normal, all that other stuff that was kind of in the periphery, I've lost it all. So like with that prayer that I remembered when I was there, I still have that because I focused on that. But there were other things that I had also remembered that I just don't remember to that same kind of detail now. And
Yeah.
what was the first part of that question?
Well, I just wanted to go back to your family and how they reacted to this, because your family still was, at the time this happened, was young.
Yeah.
And so what was their reaction to this during your failure and also after you accounted for what happened? I mean, did you share openly subsequent to your revival or your resuscitation?
This has been a real challenge for my family. Seeing me go through, everybody thought I was healthy before all this happened. So when it came on, it was a real surprise. So it shocked everybody. And then when it did start coming on, it was real powerful. After that first heart failure I had, it went to like it seemed like every day I was having heart issues, and I was going in and out of the hospital so regularly. And that was for like 5 months leading up to that cardiac arrest. And my wife really checked out. She just was overwhelmed with all the stress and everything that was happening. She was blatantly telling me that, that it was so traumatic to her to see me going into the ambulance all the time. And, she cried every time that it would happen. And she tried not to let me see it, but what can you do? She's got to sit right there. But, we tried to keep the kids from it as much as we could. They, like you said, they were young, so it was hard to keep them from it. And luckily, most of my issues, like when I would go to the hospital, most of the time happened at night. So, we didn't wake them up for most of the situations that happened.
Well, that's an amazing account there. I wish we could continue on, Brian, but we've come to a close in this episode of Heaven Encounters. So I want to thank you so much for joining us today and sharing this incredible and edifying story. So thank you. And to our audience, be of good cheer, because if you are in Jesus, Yeshua, heaven is in your future. Until next time, goodbye. Thank you for watching this episode of Heaven Encounters. If you'd like more information, you can go to Randy K Ministries at randyk.org. Take care and God bless.